So today we are going to talking about the chapter 3, descriptive study. So in this chapter, we are going to study the definition of descriptive study and also the cross-sectional study, sensors, sampling survey, case reports, case survey, ecological study, and finally the summary. So the main efforts of the main learning outcome of this chapter study is to master the definition of descriptive study, the advantage and the disadvantage of cross-sectional study, definition of sensor study, and also some important knowledge about the sampling survey, and also need to familiar with some basic knowledge. For example, the design of cross-sectional study, how to calculate the sample size, and what case report and case survey usually do, and what's the ecological study. So to start with this chapter study, we're going to start with the definition. So the descriptive study, also called descriptive epidemiology, is to organize and analyze existing data or some survey data, including the data from different sources, for example, from experimental, and or describe the variation in different places, different time or different population character, and describe the frequency of disease and the health status according to time, place, and person. So the source of descriptive study can come from many different places. For example, we can use the data source from the national sensor data, from employee health examination data, and most frequently, we also use data from the clinical records from hospital or private practice, and many other possible data source. We can use this describe study to do many issues. For example, we can use this descriptive study to describe the disease pattern and to generate the hypothesis, which is the most commonly used applications. And we also can use this study design to describe the phenomena systematically, to reveal patterns and connections that might otherwise go unnoticed. And usually, descriptive study is the first step in learning about the disease etiology. For example, if we are going to study the risk factors of a disease in case control study or cohort study, the descriptive study is usually we firstly use to have a look at of the potential hypothesis. Descriptive study is usually the quite easy, rapid, and inexpensive, and this study has been extensively used during the COVID-19 pandemic. Here is an example to try to help you to understand how we could use this descriptive study. For example, descriptive study can use to investigate the prevalence rates and also the population distribution pattern of diabetes in Fuzhou for the year of 2020. When we say population distribution pattern, it can be how is the diabetes prevalence rate among different gender, among different age groups, different regions, or different occupations. So based on this study, we can be able to draw a raw picture of diabetes prevalence rate. We can get to know which gender, age group, region, occupation have higher risk of diabetes, and therefore we can have an idea of what potential the risk factors is, and therefore we can generate hypotheses for other studies such as case control study, cohort study. There are different types of descriptive study. The first one is the collection and analysis of the existing data. So which means we can use those existing data, for example, from a hospital medical records to do a descriptive study. Or if there's no available data, we can conduct a survey study to obtain the data that we are interested in. So in the survey study, we can also have different types. For example, the ecological study, the case survey, case reports, cross-sectional study, and the outbreak survey.